Well, good evening to you all. Um, so, I thought maybe perhaps prior to beginning the talk, maybe perhaps, you know, I could say something about Jabjichan Rinpoche and also maybe just in general the Guru principle and how Guru principle in the Vajrayana path that we all are on the Vajrayana path, as we of course know. So Jabjichan Rinpoche, Jabjichan Rinpoche, most probably, as you all have seen him in life or in pictures, he was very big built. And once, when I was young, I was attending him, and then there came a time to bathe him. It was in Nepal. So then I and some maybe other Rinpoche's attendant, we had him in the bathtub, and there was a huge scar on his, I think, left side, just like a completely burnt from hip onwards. And I was so shocked to see that. And then Rinpoche laughed and said, "This is when I was young. I fell in soup." Rinpoche's family was big, noble family, Dulgo family. So I think they had a big soup, and soup was cooking, and then I don't know what Rinpoche was doing, but somehow he fell in the soup and got burnt. And the reason why I'm telling this story is he then later told me, not in the bathtub, but later told me, his father wanted him to, because his elder brother was already a monk. And so he was youngest. So his father really wanted him to carry on the Tingo family's lineage and family line. And so Rinpoche was very determined to become monk and pursue the spiritual path. And his father, because it's known that he was quite unique from a very young, with lots of magnificent kind of qualities, as some of the Tutus do have. So there was a danger, I guess, that somebody is going to recognize him as a Tugu of my monastery or Tugu of this monastery or that monastery. So his father already, before anybody approached, said anybody who came and approached him and said that my son is Tugu, I'm going to shoot him. I'm going to shoot him. So nobody, even dare to think that he is joking, and he's very serious about it. So nobody, of course, approached. I mean, a lot of lamas came and went every year, as a big noble family. And they do pujas every year for the family. So many big lamas came and went. But nobody dared. Nobody even, approached. But I think Rinpoche himself was very determined to become a monk and pursue the spiritual path. So Rinpoche, after falling in the soup and being burnt like that, then he was bedridden for, I think, 6 months or something like that. And his father was totally heartbroken. I mean, he loved him so much. And so his youngest son being, first of all, fallen in soup with some negligence of the family part maybe. And then the second, being bedridden for 6 months, broke totally his heart and was so kind of saddened. I think in that he was also a little tender and open. So, and he wasn't getting better. He wasn't getting better. Like usually you will heal, right, and you would get better. And he wasn't getting better. And they did lots of shabdans. There's shabdans, that shabdans, so many shabdans that they can ever think of. And then nothing was kind of helping. So then Father finally came to him and said, I hate seeing you this way, bedridden and so much pain and being sick for so long. So we did all these things, but nothing seems to be helping. So maybe I'll ask you, what can help you? What will help you? What can we do? And Rinpoche, without a doubt, he himself told me, without a second doubt, he said, let me be a monk. And let me, be a monk, then I will heal myself. So at that very moment, I had a sort of like a feeling to ask, if not, his father let him become monk or pursue the spiritual path, was he not going to actually be interested to live? It had that feeling to me, it had that feeling to me. So I asked if you didn't become a monk or had the chance to pursue the spiritual path, were you not going to be with us? He looked at me and he laughed a little bit, and he said, "Who knows?" He didn't say. But I had that very strong feeling. He wasn't interested to be in this world if he was not able to pursue the spiritual path, if he had to carry on the family lineage and family home and family state and become the lord of Bangkok is the big area, and be there. In Derge there's a king, and then the ministers are known as Ndunkor. To become Ndunkor. And this is, I think, maybe when he was 7 or 8, I think. Something like that. So that really stood with me. And it still is with me. To be 7 or 8 and that determined to be on the spiritual path or on the path to awakening and to be a bodhisattva, of course, to be a benefit to the Dharma and for the benefit to be a benefit to the beings. If that path is clear for him, he would live. If not, he was not most probably so interested to live. As young age as 7 or 8, it's very, very rare, right? Tuku Rinpoche told me that my mother also, she wanted to be a nun when she was young. And my grandmother brought my mother to see his root teacher, Samten Jamso. And my grandmother was complaining that if she doesn't get to be a nun, she was going to commit suicide to have to do the whole rest of the, family thing and get married and so on and so forth. So that determined, I think, is really very, very incredible. You hear about that, like a Yeshe Tsojal, we have heard. And so is also many, other stories like that. But this is, someone not reading in the biography, but in my lifetime I've met. One is my guru and my mother. That. And then, so then his father said yes. And then he got better. In a very short time, he got better. And then he was such a good... and then Shechen Jatsab came. Jatsab Rinpoche came. Not too... not after too long of a time. Shechen Jatsab Rinpoche came, and Shechen Jatsab Rinpoche then recognized him as Jaichen Wangbo's, reincarnation. And then he became monk. He was a really incredible monk to the point that he never rode horses. And in Tibet, everywhere you go, you ride a horse, or you go on a foot. So Rinpoche always went on the foot. And And then, of course, later, Muchi became Tertun. So as a Tertun, then he had to marry, and then he had a family, and so forth. Now I think, as in a principle of the Guru, I think most probably you hear this and you read this quite often. You know, your parents loves you dearly, and that's no doubt. But the way they love you is, you know, as Muchi's father wanted him to carry on the lineage of the family and do the worldly, you know, things and succeed in that. So that kind of love is, however, is genuine love without any doubt and without any slightest sort of doubt that maybe the most parents, unless, you know, in a unique situation, some parents maybe are a little different. That you would most probably put the interest of the child, your child, before you, and do everything you could to sort of care in the way you know how to care. However, in terms of the outcome, you know, you're already in samsara, and you already are going to be just without the encouragement of the parents, you're going to sow a lot of karmic seeds to be continuously in samsara for more, countless of lifetimes. And then depending on the trades and depending on the business and depending on, you know, kind of what kind of class and race and what kind of, you know, status you have in the society, there's going to be a lot of, as Jasinguchu Tokmi have stated very clearly, Nyenji cholan docha chudriyo dai sola shedang metambar landor jubi timu munaji payurbon jaselali. One of the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva is to leave the homeland, Payul. Because there's so much that kind of like, you know, reflective emotions. It's like a pot of cooking with all of the ingredients of the afflictive emotions, you know. So, even the parents do love you. The way they love you and what they encourage you, I mean, without their fault of the ignorance, they're going to be sort of making you not just only cooking in the pot of samsara, you're going to be one of those black, overcooked crust on the bottom of the pot, you know. Depending on what kind of a family and the society and what kind of a, friend and foes the family have, and all of the kind of notions of how you are to behave and what sides you are to take and what sides you are to fight and what sides you are to protect, and the, just the kind of like a, 5 poisons. That's why Jatsangutu Thongmi have stated to abandon homeland, payul, is one of the practices because you don't have that. The higher and the better and the more sort of like a society you belong to, and you have a class, and you have some kind of state, and you have also generational enemies and generational relatives, generational feuds. It's very hard to sort of get yourself out of those mindsets and not be influenced and have an independent thinking, independent mind of a spiritual nature. If it's a low, if it's kind of like no one particular known and status and state and name and fame and relatives or foes are not also so much of just like yourself important, maybe a lesser. So what in the worldly sense, what you would be more sort of like proud of being born in such family and such kind of like status. In the spiritual path, in the path of liberation, maybe perhaps it's actually more of an obstacle, more of a much difficult to get your mind free. Therefore, actually, a lot of monks and nuns do better if they come from a lowly families. I mean, look at what happened with the Milarepa, story of the Milarepa. So it's like that. So much. Even as much as your parents, how much they love you, how much they really want you to do well, but the way they want you to do well, what they want you to do, how they want you to succeed, is going to be from the karmic point of view, from the samsaric point of view, from the kind of having to reap this fruit, what you sow, maybe perhaps they, as the great masters have said, do you a lot of wrong in that way. So the only thing, that is pure, to, tha, parsum, beginning, middle, and end. Pure love is the love of the spiritual master, of your karmic connection, whom you have the karmic connection. And for us, it is because I think that kind of goodwill on behalf of you, thinking in a bigger picture, comprehending the whole of your, not just this life, but lifetimes in samsara. How you could be liberated from samsara and the circle of life times in samsara. And then try to teach you the path of Dharma. Try to tell you something opposite than what normally most of the parents would tell you. Go and make money. Go and get married. Go and get a good, some position in the society. Go and get some great name for yourself. All of the 8 worldly concerns. But the spiritual masters are genuine spiritual masters, like Chintan Rinpoche tells you to let go of those. What a relief. Who would ever actually first of all, think on your behalf that seriously. Not just only that, also for the moment, or for the year, or for the decade, but for your whole existence in samsara, for lifetimes. Countless of lifetimes what we have been in samsara. While we have now this precious human birth to try to kind of tell you. To not reperpetuate, but rather get liberation. And in order to get liberation, if you do all what others do, what others behave, how others manage their life, you're going to be ruined. So don't do that. You have no reasons to do that. You're not going to have any obligations to do that. Even if your parents tell you to do that, so you don't have that kind of obligations for yourself. So that then you could do the spiritual path in a very kind of a relaxed, carefree, and totally unmatched with the worldly concerns. Somebody, when you cannot decide for yourself, and when you're too young, and when you're too immature, or when you're too unread, or too much yourself, full of confusions, that's what your life should be and how it should be led. By what vision? What principles? What kind of inner lifestyle? When your guru tells you you don't have to do that, what all the rest of the world is doing. It's actually someone who has a real awakening seed within them. It's a great, great liberation to just hear that. It was like that for me. It was a great, great sense of relief. That kind of an encouragement, and what that kind of an encouragement, how it has molded my life. To become a spiritual practitioner. And not have so much of that pressure. Pressure put on myself, by myself, or pressure coming from family, or friends, or society. To fight off all of those pressures, you need to have some real deep kind of a certitude inside of you. Not just being a lazy bum, or not just being a ndome, careless person, hippie. Who cannot manage one's life in the world. That's a whole different case. But most of the great meditators, great masters, great yogins are not like that. They are very, as in a person, as in a being, very capable people, very deeply confident people, very deeply also matured and wise. Like a Nyame Tapurumbuchi, for example. So has also, Jigme Javinyugu recently. From a very big background of family, state, resource, and able. Like Jimmy Javinyugu also had to run away from home, having a small conversation with his mother and leaving everything behind, like a spit in the dust, to seek his spiritual guru, and went to Tsringyong in Lhasa. So, someone who, if wanted to, could very easily succeed to be the most successful man or woman, but rather chooses to leave it all behind and let it all go like a spit in the dust. It's not an easy thing to do on your own. You know the story of the Buddha. Of course, that can inspire you. You know the story of many great masters of India, and also, like Shantideva was a prince. And the day before he was to be enthroned as to be the king, he left, ran away. So as many, there are countless of stories like that. But that's all very inspiring. But in your life, somebody has to tell you 8 worldly concerns is not what you need to do, what you need to actually succeed, what you need to amass yourself. You could actually rather be a Bhagavan and pursue the spiritual path. It's such a support, such a great kindness, a love of therefore spiritual master is not, at least I know, is comparable to any love that exists in the world. Because the closest comes as your parents. Love is pure, yes. Love is real, yes. Not calculated. But the way the love is being expressed to give you encouragement, what you should do with your life and what you should become, is totally, absolutely makes you furthermore in samsara and be cooking or be in the bottom of the pot. So how does that end up for you? Not so good. So therefore, however, the love is being same in the equal level of being pure or non-calculated and things on your behalf, the way it is being taught on your behalf. The spiritual master's love in that way is absolutely incomparable. Unsurpassable, uncomparable to any love that there is in the world. And that you only realize the more you gain your own freedom in time, within you. Because there is a fight also within all of us. One side of our mind wants to be in the spiritual path and genuine and authentic and very purely pursue the spiritual path as that being the most, priority of your life, even if you are, to die tomorrow, without that kind of pursuit of your life. And a choice. You wouldn't regret it. That was my attitude. And I'm sure that is the attitude of all many great disciples as well, of the great masters. However, that is in one side of your mind. In another side, you have your own ego, you have your own ego attachments, you have your own passion, you have your own all the kind of various things that you get caught up, all the temptations that anyone ever has experienced in the world of samsara, you have those temptations inside of you too. So it's not like you are free from the beginning. So there is a fight. There's always fight. There's a fight until you win over your fight within yourself. The fight not being there and you are being born as a pure spiritual person from the beginning is impossible. Whether you become a monk or nun outside, seemingly renounce the world, inside you still have your fight, your own temptations, your own samsaric tendencies, your own weakness to be caught up in the samsaric tendencies. And the world is not help. How much there is a misery in the world in that way, clearly, self-evidently exhibits how the samsara is full of suffering. No one learns the lesson samsara being samsara and full of a suffering. No one walks out thinking how samsara is full of a suffering. Every night when they go to sleep, they prepare how they can actually get more tomorrow as they wake up, engage in samsara rather than think, I'm going to, be free from the samsara and the suffering. In there, your own parents and your own dear loved ones are going to be not help. Only the spiritual guru, only the spiritual master, whose love and expression of love and the communication, encouragement is going to be our help. And with that help, if you have some trust, now if you don't have trust, you don't have a connection. You're just following somebody for the sake of following. You're not even kind of aware what somebody is actually communicating with you, what somebody is actually encouraging you, what somebody is thinking on behalf of you, what somebody is actually sort of, uncalculatedly wants you to achieve in your precious human life. You're just into the Dharma, you're just, like as Jimmy Lingpa said, taking refuge with the passion, taking refuge with the aggression, taking refuge with the ignorance. Passion meaning, this other friends who are in the Dharma, they seem to have it all good. So therefore I want to get in there. That's with the passion. Competitively, my best friend is in the monastery and became monk. I want to not be left behind. I want to become a monk. That's with aggression. Or just, because you are lost at what to do with yourself, so then you actually, come into a monastery and take refuge and become a monk or something like that. That's with the ignorant, as Jimmy Lingpa said. Unless you are actually, following a spiritual teacher in that fashion, without some real deep awakening of your seed inside. People who have a deep seed awakening in themselves, they don't take refuge in that way. They take refuge with the pain of samsara, being acutely aware since they are very young. And seeing the way the samsara and where the people in the samsara operate, having a revulsion to them from a very young, without being taught. And then being inspired by the stories of the masters and story of the Buddha himself. And so is also a little bit of whatever the teachings you hear of as a sort of being a yogin and meditator and being in the cave and, eating with the nettles only it deeply touches you and evokes something deeply inside of you to want to emulate that rather than become a king or queen. That shows the seed awakening inside. Not like a flock of a goat or flock of a sheep that is being herded in any direction that the shepherd holds. Because liberation doesn't come from being herded. You know, liberation comes from your own wisdom. And your own wisdom to even dawn in your own mind later in life. Earlier there has to be some sign of an awakening of that seed inside of you. So mass what mass population does really doesn't make any difference to you. If that seed is awakening, you do regardless of what the mass does. Mass does or mass don't do. Or even the mass does, you are going to be different than the mass in the monastery or in the spiritual group. So, coming back to the point, when you gain some maturity over the time, some warmth of the practice over the time, some sense of a not really being so dualistic. Dualistic meaning either you are kind of fighting with your temptations, as if the temptations and all of the kind of things that comes with the temptations as in some kind of threat to you, neither you are not becoming also succumb to the temptations and the passions. You could actually have some perspective on your own mind as well as the mind of all living beings, how as an experience of mind, experience of arising with no any inherent reality. Reality is given by you. Reality is your own ignorance, your own confusions, your own tendency of being dualistic gives it to you. Or gives it to the experience. So therefore then you could actually do it or not do it. Get angry or not get angry. Be offended or not offended. Lose all your time doing something that is a pointless, or not do it. Watch whole day movie or meditate. You could do both. Choice is in your hand. When you start to feel that kind of liberation to have choices in your mind, to shape and form your life and your liberty as you wish, which in the case, without being in the spiritual path, no one has that choice. Let me be clear. Okay? Let me be clear. No one has that kind of a choice. People think that they are making their choices to get education in the way that they want to get married, to have children, to have a career, to be in this line of work, that line of work suits you, and that other line of work doesn't suit you. But inside, really, do you think people have that choice? Or it's all run by the passion? Passion that one is not even self-aware of. The force of the passion that one is not self-aware of. Or the reasoning, and the reasoning that is so kind of like, to the ego, indispensable, without any choice to embrace, without any choice to succumb to. That's why people actually get angry. That's why people make choices. That's why people actually be very black and white. That's why people never can actually sort of, even though they want to not get angry, they get angry. Even though they don't want to get attached, they get attached. Even though they don't want to be jealous, they get jealous. Even though they don't want to be pursuing something of an, pointless of pursuit, they do pursuit. Only yogins have that kind of a choice. Because yogins can see that all things inherently have no reality. You give the reality. Self is actually made up of your confusions. You don't have to succumb to the self. The reasons are all superficial. The word I'm struggling to find. Arbitrary. You could actually embrace it or not. There's a statement from Miller's point of view, the villagers are crazy. But from the villagers' point of view, Miller is crazy. Who is really crazy is being shown in the end. Miller obtained enlightenment within one lifetime. Villagers still are most probably in the bottom of somewhere in the hellish fire. Outcome tells the choice being wise or not. So when you gain that kind of a little bit more warmth of the practice, warmth of your own spacious mind to accommodate your own rising experiences. And along with that, it presents a choice. And then you could choose wisely. Choose wisely for the real outcome, for the long-term outcome, for the outcome of much of an, not immediately, just going into a retreat, you're not going to get enlightened tomorrow, but surely but slowly getting confident as what the path of the Bodhisattva is, or what the path of enlightenment is, or the path of awakening that all the great masters are talking about, or that they have enjoyed themselves. The citadel of the liberation. Then you really can, wow, you can really, you could really feel the great gratitude of the love of the spiritual master. That has been in your life. The direction that spiritual master has shown you. The encouragement that the spiritual master has given you. The whole of the kind of from day-to-day example to, teachings and the wisdom that has been bestowed in you. Because you know very well you were just empty pot. Nothing but just only a available empty pot. Just a container. But everything else, then, what now your life is, liberation is, experience of citadel of liberation, comes from the love of the spiritual master. Not because of your some, I don't know, super natural human being. You credit everything, It's shameful to take credit for yourself and for your ego. that somehow, without the spiritual master and the Vajra master, that you had some kind of like a awakening of your own. And all of the kind of like what your life has become and blessed are bundle of blessing. You know. That's why then spiritual master represents, or the Vajra master in the Vajrayana tradition, but this is across the spiritual tradition. Most probably it is not only in the Buddhist, it's also in the other traditions as well. But here we are talking about the Buddhist and the Vajrayana. Therefore then, you are the guru, which is of course, right? And you are the yidam too. Because where can you find anything more significant? To even seek something significant outside of the guru as a yidam would be a delusional. So, you are the guru. Yes, that's obvious. But you are also yidam. You are also dakini. You are also, refuge. And you are also the ground, path, fruition. To focus on something else as a separate from the guru and the guru's enlightened mind, to me seems like an absolutely wrong view, egotistical of your own. Small-minded of your own ego, not comprehending the expansiveness, the greatness, the profoundness, the immeasurableness of the Guru. From the philosophical point of view, to practice point of view, from the blessings point of view, to the what blessings can ultimately do for you. As an outcome of that blessing. Therefore, your liberation is actually, in the Nyingtik, in the Guru Yoga, in the prior to the receiving 4 empowerments, what does it say? It states something like, namji tse, duze tse, rangna ngaya pari shing, satsi uchi kongburu, june jitsun pemata, yemi nitu sangje te, something like, when the time comes for me to die, as in a bindu of a light, may I dissolve in the Guru's heart, becoming inseparable with your state and attain enlightenment. And thus to become a liberator of all living beings. It makes a perfect sense. If you want to get enlightened, where are you going to get enlightened? You're going to get enlightened only in the state of the Guru, not in a place. Not in a different realm. Not maintaining yourself, your own ego stream, dualistic mindset. You're going to get only enlightened in the mind of the Guru, which is the Dharmakaya. And that very Dharmakaya, in your experience, personal experience, outside of your meditative experience, is this physical Rupakaya that has taken shape and form as your Guru. Maybe for many others, thousands, millions. Are being benefited like you. But putting aside thousands and millions being benefited by the presence of your Guru, Dharmakaya taking form in the form that you have been able to relate with and receive all the things that you have received, is almost like, no matter how many a mother has given her children other than you a birth, your mother is your mother. You cannot make insignificant because she has given so many birth to others as well. So therefore my mother is not really so that not kind because she's given so many birth to so many other children other than myself. You relate only personally as if she is the source of your existence. She is the source of your origin. She is the one who actually allowed you to come into this world. So it becomes very personal. From each a matured, realized disciple of the significance of one's Guru above all, anything and everything in life is personal, very personal, not looking left and right and seeing how. It doesn't matter if the Guru has millions of disciples being liberated and all are flying in the sky like a birds. Or Guru has no any other disciple but you, and you alone are the disciple. That is what the Guru seemed to have. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't affirm the Guru's significance with the millions of disciples being liberated and flying like birds in the sky with the siddhi ability, or it's just only you, lonely you. The point of the matter of being a disciple is that you are touched, and you are fully touched by the grace and liberation. There's no really a notion of Tilopa having thousands of disciples, like nowadays, social media gurus. Tilopa only seem to have one guru, one disciple that is, well known, is a Naropa. But I don't think Naropa makes Naropa feel any less significant about Tilopa, whether he's the only guru, he's the only disciple. Or if there's the millions, which I'm sure Tilopa has, not maybe human, but maybe other Dakinis and Dakas from other celestial realms. It doesn't make any difference. You have to know who feeds you to make your belly full. Not like whether somebody confirms the person who feeds you is generous or not. Person. A good person or not. So in that way, Guru principle for myself, this is not, in any way to, say you all who consider to be my disciple should have that kind of a view. Whether you will ever get to that kind of a point of your own maturation and warmth of practice and liberation, or at least a taste of liberation, to feel so significant that you can put the Guru above Yidam and Dakini and Dhammapalas and Three Jewels and Ground Path Fruition. Is actually somewhat of in a personal nature of one's own individual swanam and wisdom. But in my life, I've really come to, more the older I get, the more the grace, the depth of the grace that I have been blessed with is being only fathomed. Why it took so long? Because there's some personal fights had to win over first within oneself. And then only you know that. You become more clear and more. Deeply able to acknowledge. Until that point, you sometimes think you are doing much of this practice. You are actually somehow making this all happen. You are in some kind of like a charge of your liberation. Then you realize actually that in itself is, without the grace or the blessing of the Guru, it's a delusional to even think something like that. There's no basis to think something like that. So, that's, why I have not seen Manjushri, and I don't care to see Manjushri in real, like how the paintings of Manjushri being done. Because seeing my Guru is my Manjushri. Fully happy to settle with that. I haven't seen Guru Rinpoche, but I don't have actually aspiration to see Guru Rinpoche like the statue or the, painting with, how the painters draw of the Guru Rinpoche. Because having seen Khyentse Rinpoche, I really have no any wish to see further as that. As an experience of seeing Guru Rinpoche. So somehow if I make it to a glorious Kapakala mountain, I would rather actually prefer to see Khyentse Rinpoche in his form, what I have been blessed to see, than this some painting that painter has drawn. And be in his presence. So therefore, when I have actually dream of Khyentse Rinpoche, I don't consider him as, some Rangjupa meaning with a mind stream. I see him as an embodiment of all of the Buddhas, and particularly Guru Rinpoche coming into my dream. As my life was blessed by his presence, now continuously being blessed in dreams as well. So then the question is, why do we make a Guru Rinpoche statue like this instead of put, Khyentse Rinpoche statue there? That's because that's my relation, my personal relation, but that's not going to be the relation with everyone else. So commonly, we need a Guru Rinpoche and a Manjushri in its different Rupakaya forms, holding different emblems in a different rasas, different mudras. But for me, this, presence, talking, giving me instructions, showing up in my dream, even after 30-some years been passed, is actually, Guru Rinpoche in real experience of coming in contact, and so as the Manjushri, so as also all of the Buddhas of the 3 times as well. So, there's no Vajrayana path beyond the Guru principles. It is the Guru Ihidam Dakini, so as also, Tummo Julu, Millam Vesal Pardo, Chaja Chembo, Zopa Chembo, ground path fruition, all in that way. Usually, it's not so good to be speaking so much about one's guru in that way. Keep it personal, because since it is very personal, it is very good to keep it impersonal. So, in that way, it's not so encouraged to speak, or it is said when Chujar Tisong Detsen asked about Guru Rinpoche's guru for many times over and over and over and over and over, then finally Guru Rinpoche said who his guru is, and when he just started to speak about the Shri Singha, the whole kind of like atmosphere, the kind of, completely cracked up, and so much kind of, blessings that everybody felt. And if you try to do that too many times, then people get habitually easy. Anything significant, after a few times, becomes insignificant for the ordinary mind. Get used to, habituate. And then thus you lose the blessing for yourself. But however, I think it is important sometimes to speak about one's guru and one's development of one's relation over the, lifetime. Not to expect it all to kind of be same for all, or happen what's to happen overnight for all, or for oneself. But if one actually knows something about, how the over lifetime one's relation develops in that way, then there's maybe some reference that one can actually make if one wants to. Most probably many even don't want to make a reference, don't want to have a reference, don't want to have any comparison of a depth of one's devotion and also lack of devotion, or how dualistic one's mind operates with the ego of yourself in the center of it. These are requirement of a deep self-reflection that is uncomfortable for a lot of people. Very uncomfortable. Pretending everything is good, everything is nice, everything is tidy as, how you like to believe, or you like others to believe, But then inside never have some deep kind of a discernments and self-reflections, and also growth to seek and growth to be appreciated within oneself, makes the Vajrayana practice very, in some ways, if you know how to use the bell and damaru, you become a Vajrayana practitioner. This is the Ringi Tamsik, Samaya of 5 Jnani Buddhas. So, if you have received empowerment, and then if you know how to use bell and damaru, or maybe just the bell and dorje alone, you are Vajrayana practitioner. But small, medium, large size of a sadhana, what you know how to kind of recite and do, you are Vajrayana practitioner. But in terms of the inside, there's so much as a Vajrayana practice and Vajrayana, what means to be a Vajrayana practitioner, that gets never sort of even surface. On the surface, how do you say, scratch the surface. And then one can think, I know how to use the bell and dorje, as anyone else is doing the sadhana practice. So why am I lesser, or why am I more Vajrayana practitioner than anyone else? One can develop that kind of like a arrogance or sense of like a how do you say? Plateauhood with the Vajrayana practice. And then if you remain in that plateau without addressing your own kind of a lack of depth, with a deeper sort of like a longing and deeper sort of understanding and deeper inspiration and deeper, readings of, masters and namthars of great masters, then day passes, week passes, month passes, year passes, and you could spend 10, 20 years in the something and nothing is going to change inside. Only you can come out thinking, I've spent that many years and retreat. But actually, what did you achieve? What did you get being there for so long, so many years? Okay. So in that context, sometimes I think it's good to read namthars, such as namthars of the great masters, And then really have the reference of comparison in inspiration, not to be hard on yourself, not to sort of like get disparaged, not to lose kind of like your own sense of self-esteem. As who you think you are, serious practitioner. But in reality, then you realize you haven't really even scratched the surface of Vajrayana practice. But if you do it with a sort of like a humility, humbleness, longing, inspiration, and then really try to sort of like see where you are stuck and how you are stuck and the reasons why you are stuck in the place where you are stuck. It's all states of mind, but nonetheless you are stuck in a state of mind because you are not self-aware. One. Second, you are even aware, you don't want to do anything about it. Then it doesn't go any further. One remains in a plateau. And years pass and you die. So, in that context, sometimes I think, it's a personal story of mine and my own understanding and development of my own personal relation over the years of life, over the years and lifetime with my own root guru. And maybe, I know that maybe here few in the MSB lineage will be benefited. Not, I don't know, all can digest what I'm saying. Or another have the inspiration because, like Chenzo Rinpoche is Chenzo Rinpoche, right? And then in terms of living guru, it's me. So, I can understand this with the Khyentse Rinpoche, but living guru being me, I don't even understand that myself, how that could be the same, right? So, in that way, perhaps, significant being, incredible being, from the birth, as I have stated, young ages as young ages as 6 or 7, how he was a different and magnificent and resolute, That's easy to understand, In the modern days, in the modern world, modern lifestyles, modern gurus, who wears jeans and drinks bourbon, and most probably it's going to be just contextually, socially, much difficult to digest some kind of, that nature of the relation can be developed and profoundly touch the disciple's mind other disciples' mind can be that way blossom. But however, that's going to be rare and going to get rare and rare. You know, in 50 years from now, how we are as an, this generation of the gurus, how we manifest, how we conduct ourselves, how we dedicate our lives to the spiritual path, how we have actually, made a point of a liberation of ourselves and others as the focal point of our life, and did all what we did to kind of teach and initiate and gather students and look after them and spend our lives, work being the caring of the students, right? However, in the genes and drinking bourbon, not in the robes or not in the monastery or not in the, some caves, right? In the modern cities of North America or wherever, Asia. Still, our lives, our focus, our education, our struggles, our, works can speak for itself as a compatible, because we have a good examples, good models. Down the road in 50 years, we are going to be also a rare species. Very rare species. It's already showing up. How rare it is to dedicate, like some of my generation has done, to dedicate our lives for the benefit of the others and for the benefit of the Dharma and for our own spiritual growth. And did what we did. And that's the nature of time, nature of society, nature of perceptions. Not praising ourselves with the ego, but work itself can speak for itself. So, however difficult it is, with so much of a gap between my own root teacher and myself, still, I think some are very emotional, romantic, and very, I think, blind, faith-oriented, can still most probably have pure perception. And with the pure perception, even the, the dog tooths become a ringer barrier, right? So it can be a benefit. It can be a benefit in that way. To know, I know how Rinpoche, my own root teachers, he hasn't really spoken in his writings a little bit here and there, about his, development of relation with his root teacher and his devotion to his root teacher. And in his writings you could read a little bit, but in his speech, like this kind of a speech, he has never given on his own relation with his root teacher or anything like that. But I know how much he held his own root teacher, Gyatso Rinpoche, in that kind of in a manner, or that kind of in a depth of highest view and highest gratitude for who he is and what he has become. So that also, have most probably has influence and has gave us so much of also understanding of the Vajrayana teachings. In the teachings you read everything. But without some personal examples, it gets to be a little bit just like in the books only. So, knowing in that way, Rinpoche's his own devotion to his Guru helped us most probably to have the devotion to mature and fight over our own struggles inside. And remember the examples of what made your life most blessed. Not forget, it's not because you have given birth here on the earth, or with anything else you think you have achieved. Anything, everything in the spiritual world or in the secular world, what one has achieved, I attribute that to the blessing of my root teacher, not because of my only credit that I can actually take for myself is try to not mess it up as best as I can. My own good fortune of coming in contact with him. That's all, So, it might help. Few here and there, But it's a very complex subject. Very, very complex subject of how one can relate to this subject in real experience. What one can manage, or one most probably even to go to relate in that way to some extent and then get overwhelmed and give up, and not have some real landing ground. That happens all the time. Most of one's relation with one's guru ends up being somewhat of that way, Never to kind of find a good landing with a good kind of like a solid landing of deep nature of affection, because it's very, ego is very squirmy in that field. However, if one like myself kept on it, self-reflect, kept on it, meaning self-reflect, see where one is, what is happening with one's mind and one's, experience and one's, discomfort or fate that is already there, and faith that is not there because you have not explored that way, depth enough of development of your own faith. Because you have not taken the time to really develop that kind of depth of faith in viewing of your life, in viewing of the Tantra, in viewing of your experience, in viewing of your practice, in viewing of where you started in the practice and where it has come to be now, and what really fueled that growth. You have never taken time. It's just, Oma Beza Guru Pemas, 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 like that, right? You know, and then ready to leave. In all that kind of an emotion of speed running through the practice of Vajrayana and making the practice of Vajrayana just as a ritual, lifestyle, way of coming together and having some, feasts. And then look at the feast and see what you could actually eat and what you could reject. And then what you could eat, try to take a little more, So, Tarnang is seemingly only a practice of Dharma or practice of the Vajrayana versus a real Vajrayana. There is a sky and earth differences. To bridge from Tarnang to real, you have to be present. You have to really involve yourself. You have to really make yourself understand and read biographies, read tantras, bring them in your experience with self-awareness, self-reflection, self-inspiration. Not always be looking what is the time in the clock. When is the break time coming up if you are doing a session? Opportunities in that way, every minute, every second, can be missed. And the missing time can never return back in your life. So, however, that is the kind of struggle we are all in to practice the Vajrayana. At least facing up to it. Honesty and longing, supplication can do all wrong right. Too. One, that's why in Kagyupa it is stated, Men karpo chiktup. Mugu is like a men karpo chiktup. One medicine for all illness. But in order to have that kind of like a mugu, you need to develop that kind of a mugu. You have to feel comfortable enough to develop that kind of a mugu, rather than feeling squeamish, embarrassed, awkward, dualistic, losing your ground of ego, self-esteem. Taking over and never sort of like a really develop a mugu. Mugu is a deep intimacy feeling. Such a deep intimacy feeling has to break down all barriers and dualism of one's own ego versus whom you are having a mugu with. So, however, Nyingtik lineage have survived here till now, and then I supplicate, without the Mugu, Nyingtik lineage is not going to survive. In the Garab Dorje's Siksumnetik, Paturumuchi states very clearly, in other traditions, third empowerment is being the prelude, cause for the fourth empowerment. In the mother, in the also, Sutrayana, immense amount of merit, two countless eons of good deeds, from the path of accumulation to path of application, end of the path of application. It takes to have the path of seeing then dawn in one's experience. But in the Nyingtik tradition, it's not the accumulations of merit of two countless of lifetimes over the two path, earlier two path, to dawn the path of seeing in one's experience, or another, it is not in the other Vajrayana tradition, the third empowerment being the immediate cause for the fourth empowerment, as an Pe and Pechin example and real experience of the dawn of awakening. It is the Mugu alone, is the Nyeju Tematakwa, is the immediate cause for the dawn of awakening. Right? It bypasses all of the other, what is said to be the immediate cause of the awakening. And it focuses on the Mugu alone as the immediate cause of the dawn of awakening. So, that means until one gets to the deeper level of Mugu, Tokwa is not possible. It's a shadow of Tokwa. Tokwa is a realization. It's an image, Tunchi. And Tunchi can be mistaken as in a real realization. When the genuine Mugu is being born inside of oneself, that is not fabricated, then the Tokpa is also possible. And they come hand in hand together. So the Mugu, in that way, since it's very personal, intimate, and complex, in itself, of course, is not complex. It's just what it is. But it's complex because how ego digests or does not digest the idea of the Mugu. Sets it to be complex. So if one can actually get to that place, crossing over all the ego's awkwardness or ego's kind of a resistance or ego's sort of maintenance of duality, and asserts its own self-importance over the Mugu, when one can get beyond that all wrongs are done by one thing, that is the Mugu itself. Then the supplication has a power. Then the merging of one's mind with the Guru has some real significance. Then the real kind of a sense of, seeing the world as the Guru, not just your, Guru Yoga's Guru, whom you relate to, but the world as a Guru, Guru's manifestations. Not only that, the whole phenomena as the display of the Guru, all of those has a relevancy, personal relevancy. Personally, you come in touch to experience that way, your own world and the phenomena. So, in a way, in the Vajrayana, if we can just there are thousands, right? There are thousands of examples of many great masters, their faith and their devotion to the Dharma or to the Buddha Dharma, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or the masters of their own. One after another, significant, great, significant, inspiring stories that you could actually most probably read and hear about. Why did, in the words of my perfect teacher, Patru Rinpoche, or Jigme Javin Yugo, or Jimmy Lingpa, stated the Kongpo Ben's story. The story of the faith is exemplified by the Kongpo Ben. The Ben named man from Kongpo who came to see the Cho, who actually thought the butter lamb was, in front of the Cho, is to, dip his the other things that is edible in the butter, and the lamp was lit to keep the butter liquid, right? That kind of a mind of a simplicity, primitive, a very basic, uninfluenced by readings or worlds. View. Who actually, left his own shoes in front of the Jowo and said, look after this while I actually make a 3 circumambulations to you. And in doing so, the attendant of the Jowo that time, the temple that time, came in, was shocked that somebody left the shoes in front of the Jowo and was going to take it away. And Jowo spoke. The statue of the Shakyamuni Jowo in the Lhasa spoke. Don't take that away. That was left for me to look after while Kongo Ben is making a circumambulation. Jowo spoke, right? And then he invited Jowo to his home for dinner. And Jowo came. This story is a very significant because it's a story of heart rather than head. Story of a heart also from the purest standpoint of view rather than complex emotions of self and all of the kind of calculations that comes from the self. That creates the duality. When he was looking at the Jowo, he wasn't seeing the Jowo as a statue. He was seeing Jowo as a real Jowo. Buddha Shakyamuni sitting on the throne. When he invited, he was inviting a real Jowo to his home. Relating in that kind of in a very original, primitive, basic, purest of pure heart wins over all of the other stories that there is to account for faith and devotion. Right? So if we can actually reduce our own complexities to the minimum, reduce our own, various math and calculations to the minimum, reduce our own self and others' projections and duality to the minimum. Just truly come from our own basic nature of connection and heart. That also from a very simple, secure trust without the fear and paranoia of the self, threatening from inside to never actually allow yourself to step out of your comfort zone of devotion or mugu. Letting go of that does right to all wrong. Guru Rinpoche himself have stated, "Yi chi shi chi sinab julan juk lo tesum datana chisam rup." If you have this lote lingchur, which means Guru Rinpoche, you know what's best for me. From this point on, I leave in your hand to do as what's right for me, since you know best what's right for me. That kind of an attitude or that kind of a mindset, that kind of a purest of the pure nature of secure trust, in Guru Rinpoche, he said, blessing is right there. Tepa Chinji, Gonyala Penjung, all who have faith in me in that way, I'm right in your doorsteps. If you have, from that kind of in a place, that kind of in a state of mind, of a lote lingchur, if you supplicate, all your aspirations is going to come to be fulfilled. Now this is not only with the Guru Rinpoche saying that, this is the case in all of the other traditions as well, too. So being able to do that, so you are held by the Nyingtik masters. You are held by the great aspirations of the great masters of the Nyingtik lineage, the mind lineage, symbol lineage, and the hearing lineage. It's not just only the immediate guru is actually, however, that is the focus, since you have the relation and the presence of the immediate guru being present in your life as a Rupakaya. But all the masters' blessings come through that master. All the, not only Nyingtik lineage, all the lineages of the Vajrayana, so as also all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, blessings flows through the master to liberate you. So, thinking in this way, understanding in this way, if we can truly supplicate, we can do all many wrongs that we have by the default of ourselves being born as an ignorant and also in the living in the ignorant culture with the surrounding influences of that. I really do believe that one can attain state of enlightenment within in one lifetime in the Nyingtik path. through the Kada Tekchu practice and Lundup Tagal practice. But devotion in that way must be the ground for something like that to happen. So with this then, let me conclude here and also get into the text of the Guru Yoga of Chensur Rinpoche. I'm sorry for the lengthy talk of 2.5 hours. Wow. I didn't realize that myself.